Welcome back to the Wyatt Claypool Show, everyone. Today, I'm pleasantly surprised to report to you guys that spines do exist in the Liberal Party. Not intelligence, but at least some spines. Because in the aftermath of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals losing the very safe seat of Toronto St. Paul, which is literally right in the center of the city, this is the safest of safe seats. This is a seat that they still held on to when the party folded in on itself in 2011 under the lack of leadership of Michael Ignatieff. They lost this seat. And now I expected that what was going to happen was that the Liberals were just going to say, oh, it's a fluke. They tricked the Canadian people. The Conservatives somehow interfered in this election, like one of the Liberal volunteers was saying, because Melissa Lantsman sent out a letter to Jewish people in the neighborhood, and they tricked the Jews into voting for the Conservatives. That's what it seemed like they were lining up for. We all saw the clips on my last episode of Mark Holland having a meltdown on television saying that it's just that Canadians are emotional and they'll figure out that the Liberals are actually taking charge and everything's great. And Chrystia Freeland saying, oh, I couldn't imagine anyone else leading us into this next election but our charismatic leader, Justin Trudeau. And now we actually have some Liberal MPs and former MPs coming out to smack around Justin Trudeau, saying that obviously he needs to step aside. Let's start off with Catherine McKenna, our former environment minister, dubbed Climate Barbie. And no, that is not a sexist term because I call Stephen Guilbeault Climate Ken, and I don't think that anyone has a problem with that. But in this article from the Globe and Mail, it's actually CBC News, says former Trudeau minister Catherine McKenna says the Liberals need a new leader, which is kind of hilarious because I think Catherine McKenna is the last person that we want to hear advice to anyone from, considering that she was so incompetent at her job that she misplaced billions of dollars as the environment minister. They spent money on projects and then they couldn't actually account for literally billions of dollars. They knew they spent it somewhere, but they forgot where. And now this lady's going to step in and tell Justin Trudeau that it's time to, maybe go the way of the dodo. In a certain sense, I actually didn't like that she was the one person who came out because she was going to be very easy to discredit. She's a former Liberal MP, didn't run after 2019, and so she's kind of irrelevant, and not many people put much stock into what she says. But then actual current Liberal MPs started coming out and also going after Justin Trudeau. We see New Brunswick Liberal Wayne Long saying that Justin Trudeau needs to step down and that we need a new leader to actually bring us, a modicum of a chance of winning in 2025. You could say, well, he's a backbencher, but this is the funniest one that just came out. So Nate Erskine-Smith, who ran for the Ontario Liberal Party and actually got pretty close to winning. It was between himself and Bonnie Crombie, and obviously Bonnie Crombie just had a much bigger profile, so was able to outmuscle him by the end. But he was a contender for being a guy that most people, at least myself in Alberta, doesn't know who he is. But he came out with a video, and this is really biting the Liberals because it was just 2 weeks ago that the Liberals were relying on his podcasting skills to go after Conservative MP Arnold Viersen for some very badly taken out of context comments Arnold Viersen had made on pro-life issues. I really like Arnold Viersen. He's a great MP, but it was just him rapid fire questioning him on a bunch of controversial issues, and Arnold never actually got to talk about those issues. He was able to give surface level answers, and they never really got into a deeper discussion. If they did, I think most people would say, well, Arnold's positions are completely in within the stream of what the middle class, like mainstream Canadian wants. But now Nate Erskine-Smith is coming out with a video going after Justin Trudeau, basically saying, we worked hard for Toronto St. Paul, and the fact that we couldn't pull it out no matter what we did really proves that the party is in a crisis position and that we do have the power as Liberal MPs to choose a new leader. He says this right here on his X account: forget the anonymous quotes from Liberal MPs. If anyone has a say, it should be the grassroots members. Here are my thoughts on a tough by-election and what comes next for the Prime Minister and our country. Like, this is a shot across the bow. I want to play a little bit of the video that he posted alongside it.
Which brings me to Toronto St. Paul's and the recent by-election. Now, I knocked on doors, sure, but far too small a sample to have a real sense of the riding there. My colleague John McKay pointed to support for Israel as a flashpoint for the by-election. It's impossible that increased rents and mortgage renewals at higher interest rates didn't play a factor. And capital gains changes, sure, they may well have swung a few points. Carolyn Bennett represented that riding for almost 30 years. Leslie Church was smart and hardworking, but didn't benefit from a very contested nomination or from Bennett's endorsement because the government had appointed her to be an ambassador before the race. There were some basic operational mistakes here, and complacency was our enemy. And then there's how people feel about the prime minister and his government. Governing wears on governments. People are unhappy for a variety of reasons. And of course, a by-election is a good way to let that be known. It's a message that something has to change, which the prime minister acknowledged. But does that include a change at the top? Now, I'm not running again, so none of this is personal for me, except that I do care about a progressive direction for this country. Well, Justin Trudeau re-energized a downtrodden Liberal Party and brought it from third to first in 2015. He has won 3 elections. He has imperfectly, yes, but advanced a progressive direction, strong climate action, prioritized reconciliation, child poverty reduction and childcare, improved pensions, worker protections and a federal minimum wage, a return to social housing investments, action to address the opioid crisis, and more.
You just quickly want to cut him off here, and I'll let him finish because I know he's about to throw in a butt and saying that Justin Trudeau needs to walk off stage quietly now. You've ruined our party now. Please dance back into the background so we can have someone else come up. But even all these accomplishments he's listing for Justin Trudeau, at least in my opinion, are utterly pathetic. Yes, some people enjoy these social programs. Some of these things are what we could vaguely define as a good to at least somebody. But the problem is the underlying finances of the country, the economy of the country, the social fabric of the country is so damaged to get these little tiny goodies. And these little tiny goodies that usually are actually causing the inflationary issues and are going to require more benefits in the future in order to make up for the damage that they're doing to the economy. And so even Nate Erskine-Smith trying to make this all look like Justin Trudeau has a good legacy. He can ride off into the sunset. No, he can't. He's done a terrible job. And that's the secret here. He's trying to downplay the problems of Justin Trudeau, but there wouldn't be a big but coming in this video if he was actually doing a good job. And if Canadians recognize those quote unquote accomplishments as real accomplishments.
Could also run down the list of frustrations too. Electoral reform at the top of that list now more than ever, obviously, but he has earned the right.
Now more than ever, obviously, because the Liberals are going to lose, and Nate Erskine-Smith, obviously being a big progressive Liberal, just wants the system changed simply to benefit the Liberal Party. Even though obviously in the last few elections they wouldn't have won if electoral reform was in place. But now that they're really behind, they want electoral reform to hold the Conservatives back from winning a majority.
To right the ship. Of course, if you care about the country and its direction and you're worried as I am about a Poilievre government, there isn't necessarily unlimited time to right the ship. The Prime Minister has articulated the need to protect our progress as he answers questions about running again, and he and his team should now articulate why he is the best person to protect it. And that isn't to say he isn't.
He's going to keep going on. I don't think we need to watch any more of this, but Justin Trudeau is just so obviously not the right person to be helming the country at this point. The fact that he even has to say that the Prime Minister and his team need to articulate why he's the best person for the job, if that is ever a question in your political career when you are in the top position that people are saying, well, I think he has to explain why he's the best person for this job, you're not the best person for this job. If questions like this are even ever floated, obviously you can fall into some hard times as a leader, but people should never feel like this is the wrong man for the time and place. That's the problem. When people are starting to ask the question has already answered itself. That if people are questioning if you're the right person, you're not the right person. It's kind of one of those things that Mark Holland did yesterday. When you start to try and tell the voters how they voted wrong, you're usually losing. It's not because that, if we just explain this properly, whether Trudeau is the better prime minister or why Liberal Party policies are actually good and Canadians just got it wrong, it's just done. And to put a point on just how done it is, the Liberals somehow, even after Toronto St. Paul, have a new scandal breaking. So Harjit Sajjan, our former defense minister, an utterly incompetent defense minister, is now in a new scandal, and he's somehow our minister of emergency preparedness. So he screwed so badly on defense that he wasn't just kicked out he wasn't just kicked out of the Liberal cabinet, if not caucus. No, he was still given another position after this, even though he was proven to be an utter incompetent buffoon. And now we have new details showing how much of a buffoon he was when it came to the Afghanistan withdrawal that happened back in 2021. In a certain sense, you can't fully blame the Liberals for the Afghanistan withdrawal because this was all on President Joe Biden randomly just pulling the carpet out from underneath the Afghani government. This is how insane the Afghanistan pullout was. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the sort of forever wars type stuff that goes on, but for some reason, Joe Biden pulled out not just the American military, but he even canceled all of the contracts with military contractors that were keeping Afghani planes in the air, because you can train an Afghani soldier to go into pilot school and train him how to fly a jet fighter. You can do that, but it takes so much more time to train someone to be an engineer of the caliber that can maintain a military grade aircraft. And the thing is, Biden just took away all of that funding. And so the Afghani military, who relied heavily on air support, just collapsed because once they figured out they couldn't get their helicopters and planes off the ground, the military forces on the ground were saying, well, the problem is we're fighting crazy Islamists who don't actually care if they die. We do care if we die, so we're just going to fold, because once this becomes a pure ground war with no air support, we're not doing it anymore. And so we can blame Biden and the Biden administration for having just completely let everyone down. They could have literally kept the Afghani military in the fight perpetually forever by just even with pulling every single American troop off the ground for less than $1 billion a year. They could have probably kept Afghanistan whole, but for just the photo op of cutting all American support out of Afghanistan, we just gave the country over to a bunch of Stone Age Islamists. But Harjit Sajjan, the defense minister at the time, the Liberal defense minister, while we were trying to get Canadian citizens and assets out of the country, people who are translators for the Canadian military, who we should be honoring their service to, and then bringing them out of the country because they could get killed. We should be getting Canadian citizens out. We should be getting all of our military assets out as much as we can. Harjit Sajjan had taken, and this is under very credible sources that came out of the military, 4 different military sources on the ground say that he diverted Canadian military resources towards saving Afghani Sikhs, because he is a Sikh man himself. And so for some reason on the ground, he felt more loyalty to Sikh Afghanis, who obviously they're in danger too, just as Afghani Christians are under threat and any religious minority is under threat in Afghanistan. But that's not your job to make the call that we should just be taking resources out from getting Canadian citizens out of Afghanistan to get people that you share a similar religious common cause with. That's absolutely insane. Here's Harjit Sajjan trying to, bat away this story, even though it's obviously very credible. It's from Robert Fife and Stephen Chase at the Globe and Mail, 2 guys who, if they're good at anything in this life, it is investigative journalism.
You said you directed the military to help a group of Afghan Sikhs during the Afghanistan evacuation in 2021. What's the difference from directing and ordering the military to do this?
Okay, let me address the Globe article quite directly, because I'll be honest with you, it was utter BS. Those who were following the evacuation missions and then events previously to that know quite well that there was an approved government policy to safely evacuate as many vulnerable Afghans as possible, which included obviously Canadians first, those who worked with us, like our interpreters.
Well, that's the problem. It wasn't Canadians first. Why did Sikh Afghanis even rank in the top 10 things that we were supposed to be doing on the ground? Because there was a lot of Canadians that got left behind, people who either did or could get killed because of Sajjan's inaction, or because of his actual intervention in preventing our troops from getting those people out. That's the problem here. And just a bit of a tell that he gave here that he's lying. Whenever I find that politicians start swearing, it's probably because they're being dishonest. Whenever people start using, 4-letter words, it's because they're trying to show how emotionally passionate I am in denying this allegation. And when the person can't just say, yeah, no, that's silly, I can give you some sources and, military people on the ground to tell you that didn't happen. When someone just starts saying, that's BS, that's a complete lie, slander, bleep this and bleep that, they're usually lying. And I'm going to get to some stuff later that also proves that Sajjan has a bit of a tendency to lie.
And it also included vulnerable Afghans, which included religious minorities like the Afghan Sikhs and Hindus. And I can assure you, all effort was done to carry this out and do it in as safe as possible manner, and to get as many people out as possible as well. And I also want to just mention the fact, to read that story and to take some of these questions, given that it was a approved government policy that we were executing. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I would be getting those questions if I wasn't wearing a turban. And those who actually know me quite well. That
you're being asked because you did something that was out of step with the military's mission. Here, I am a Baptist Christian, and let's say we are in Nagaland, India. It has a large Baptist Christian population, and we were trying to get out 50 Canadians, just 50 Canadian citizens, and we had troops on the ground trying to get them out of some situation there. Some communist revolution was taking place, and I start diverting troops in order to try and get Nagaland Baptists out of India. Do you think I wouldn't get questions about whether I, for some reason, have some loyalty to people from my religious background over Canadian citizens when I'm explicitly there to try and save Canadian citizens? That would be an open and honest question. It has nothing to do with him having a turban, and him bringing up just ends up proving he's a complete dullard for thinking that this was going to get him out of scrutiny, to just bring up the idea that, oh, do you think are you questioning me only because I'm wearing a turban? No. And if anything, you're actually proving that why we don't trust you, because you keep bringing up irrelevant stuff like you wearing a turban and the fact that I've served this country for a long time.
Throughout my careers and my service, I've rarely ever even talked about racism and what it actually meant. But I'll be honest with you, it needs to be called out. And the reason being, just last night, my daughter was not even aware of this articles to come out, and she on her own was talking about the visceral hatred, and she's 15 years old, by the way, visceral hatred that you see online, and the kind of messaging that's being pumped out there on social media. And I had to, console her, saying, you know what, it was better before. It's better now than it was before. It doesn't make it easier for her to see this, and I couldn't.
Okay, it's turned into complete irrelevant nonsense. We can stop this now. Yeah, to put it mildly, Harjit Sajjan, I was going to say something else, but he doesn't have any credibility on this issue. And I want to quickly jump over to what my friend Rahim Mohammed at the National Post had put on his X account today, saying if only there were warning signs about Sajjan. And he posts these headlines about him, and it says, BC Sikhs quit Liberals to protest Justin Trudeau's star candidate. And it's because Harjit, sorry, I'm always bad with the name, Sajjan has very close Kalistani connections. He is a very warm person towards the radical Sikh separatist movement in India. Another one, Harjit Sajjan apologizes for claim about Afghan offensive. He basically lied and pretended that he was a key player in several different operations going on in Afghanistan that he had nothing to do with. We have Indian politicians accuse Minister Sajjan of being a Sikh nationalist, which he absolutely is. MPs vote to censure Sajjan over handling of sexual misconduct in the armed forces. It's almost like he's not a credible person. And yet, for some reason, he thinks it's enough that when the Globe and Mail article is brought up to him, written by two very good investigative journalists, that he can just kind of do this, and it's going to go like, oh, it was nothing to see here. There is very much something to see here, and the fact that he thinks that he can hand wave this away with just the generic boilerplate about intolerance and racism is ridiculous. Plus, if you know anything about the Kalistani movement that Sajjan is very friendly to, it is a very racist movement because they believe anyone not from their Sikh community is dirty. And again, the vast majority of Sikh people are not Kalistani crazies, just as a member of any religious group is not part of the small fringe movement. They are a small fringe movement, and they tend to be very, if what my friend Daniel Boardman, who also hosts a show on the National Telegraph, sometimes says is if you hang out with Kalistanis at all, there's a lot of slurs that get thrown around pretty quickly because they do see themselves as higher as everyone else. And I need to bring up something. Sorry, I'm slurring a lot in this video a little bit here. But something I do need to bring up because it is important, and I am happy that Harrison Faulkner posted this, Harrison Faulkner over at True North. And this, considering the context that I was disqualified unfairly from my in my candidacy for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination, and this guy's around, is concerning. But Harrison Faulkner highlighted this man who is running for the Conservative Party in a riding in British Columbia. Harrison Faulkner said, "Why did Conservative Party candidate Harjit Singh Gill delete this tweet? We would all like to know whether Harjit Singh Gill would also risk Canadian lives to rescue Afghan Sikhs over Canadian citizens, because Harjit Singh Gill posted this on X, which he quickly deleted, saying the Globe and Mail is racist, vile, and wrong for setting Canadian values against national interests. Canadian leaders, especially Minister Sajjan, had a duty to protect both, and he did that, and he did just that." And he tags in Stephen Chase, Robert Fife, and the Globe and Mail. So when I say, why is this man a Conservative Party candidate, it's not even just because of that. You could say that's a mistake, although he basically just showed, mask off, I'm a massive Khalistani and I have more loyalty to another Khalistani like Sajjan than I do to the Conservative Party and conservative values. But the man literally ran for the NDP in the 2019 election. Why is this man running for the Conservative Party? Why? Like I'm like constantly frustrated behind the scenes. I usually don't show it on the show here, but Pierre Poilievre is the man who is probably going to become the next Prime Minister of Canada in 2025. And right on him. He's done the right things. He's taken stances on the right policies. But behind the scenes in the Conservative Party are some of the same people who lost the election in 2015, 2019, and 2021. And they're making the same stupid mistakes, picking stupid candidates like Harjit Singh Gill, who I guess they wanted him because he's a radio show host. He's a complete flip-flopper on policy. He's obviously a Khalistani. He's just obviously a Khalistani. We can all see this. He's literally backing up Sajjan because for some sort of allegiance he feels towards him, when Sajjan himself is obviously a Khalistani and obviously did something deeply immoral in Afghanistan. And for some reason, this guy's still allowed to run. I'm not allowed to run. Leela Ahir's not allowed to run. Garrett Van Dorlen isn't allowed to run in Oxford. There's tons of people who have been disallowed who, even if I agree or disagree with them on certain policies, they were good candidates. They were actually people who local members would want, and Canadians as a whole would not be kind of squint at you wondering why you had this guy running for you. So this is an example where, guys, some tough love in the Conservative Party. You got to make sure that you're not kicking people out of nominations for doing nothing wrong and then putting a guy like that in a riding in British Columbia who obviously is kind of looking like he's compromised. So good thing Harrison Faulkner from True North posted that. And I always like it when people from conservative outlets are willing to go out and say, guys, Conservative Party, I like your policies, but please don't screw this up on behalf of trying to collect a few more Sikh votes in this riding because this guy's popular in the Sikh community. It could obviously in that riding be another Sikh candidate. It doesn't have to be this guy. So let's figure our crap out. But before I move on to the last story I want to cover today, I just quickly want to plug WyattClaypool.com. I have that linked in the description of this video below, or you can obviously just type into Google WyattClaypool.com. Sign up to my campaign organizing list. Although I was not allowed to run in the Signal Hill nomination, I'm trying to make sure that I recommend good candidates around the rest of the country so that regardless of what part of the country you guys are in, even if I don't live in your area, I can still check in on races going on in different provinces and different ridings and be able to give you guys recommendations for who I think is a good candidate. Or you can even reach out to me and recommend who you think is a good candidate in your area. I can find who's also in that postal code and then also sort of pass on the information that you give me. I want this to be kind of a collective campaign organizing platform. So check that out. And then you can also donate to the legal fund that I have going on Give, Send, Go. If you appreciate this show, please, help support our legal fund so that whenever people come after us, we can actually fight back and not have to scrounge for every dollar that we have in our personal lives in order to fight off these ridiculous lawsuits. Anyways, so I want to move on to this final story going on in Ontario that proves why I don't like Premier Doug Ford. Doug Ford, like my co-host Daniel Boardman says, is pretty much these days just Fat Trudeau. He's a man who really has no conservative instincts or principles. He effectively just buys votes through massive subsidy programs the exact way Justin Trudeau does. He refused to do any reforming of the Ontario curriculum. Even a fantastic Conservative MP, Jamil Javani, who replaced Aaron O'Toole in Durham, has been calling out Ford since he got elected in Durham, which I praise him for. That's amazing that he became a Conservative Party MP, and he's taking the honeymoon period of his time in office to slam Doug Ford for being a terrible conservative. But he's going after them because they haven't gotten rid of the just over-the-top sex ed curriculum. They haven't gotten spending under control. Spending's way higher than it was even under Kathleen Wynne. Everything is just becoming a big subsidy program. Everything in Ontario has gotten worse. And it's not gotten worse in like a unique way, but Doug Ford has just extended the same stupid programs that Kathleen Wynne has. We're subsidizing green energy programs. We're subsidizing battery factories, EV factories, fake jobs that wouldn't exist unless the Ontario government and the Canadian government were shilling out hundreds of millions of dollars to create those fake jobs. And so I already don't have a lot of respect for Doug Ford. And then this morning, he kicks out a great MPP from his caucus, Goldi Ghamari, for having appeared in a video with Tommy Robinson. And I'm going to get to Tommy Robinson in just a bit here, but I think Kirk Lubimov, I know Kirk and I can never say his name correctly, his last name, Lubimov. Okay, Kirk. Kirk posted this, and I think it was a good summation of what went on. He said, Doug Ford is a spineless coward. Ford removes Goldi Ghamari from the Ontario PC caucus because of her phone chat with Tommy Robinson. It wasn't obvious before by Ford rolling over and weak stance on the terrorist flag wavers and Hamas mobs on the streets of Ontario. It should be obvious now that Ford's government and his inner circle are influenced by Islamists and extremists. Just look at who will be celebrating this. And this statement from Doug Ford reads, so I'll back this off a little bit here. He says, today the Premier has made the decision to remove MPP Goldi Ghamari from the Ontario PC caucus effective immediately. This decision follows repeated instances of serious lapses in judgment and a failure to collaborate constructively with caucus leadership and as a team member. While this decision does not come easily, it has become clear that MPP Ghamari can no longer continue to role within our caucus. It's because he's not a complete tool. Or she's not a complete tool. That's why she's out of caucus. She stood up to Islamist mobs. She actually was one of the key people leading the charge to get the IRGC listed as a terrorist organization in Canada. That was finally done last week. That was great to see. And now she's being kicked out because pressure groups went after her for appearing in a phone video with Tommy Robinson. Now, people are going to say, well, Tommy Robinson's far right. Did you know that he used to be the English Defence League leader in England? And yeah, that's bad. I would agree that's bad. The English Defence League is obviously a receptacle for a lot of, football hooliganism in England. A lot of, type white nationalists or white nationalist adjacent people were in that group. I don't believe Tommy Robinson's ever been a white nationalist. White nationalists are what I would refer to as massive losers. But Tommy Robinson, at least from my perspective, is probably one of the best examples of a man who could have gone down a bad road. He could have gone into extremism. He could have gone towards actual racist type politics. And these days, he's, he basically campaigns against hatred. He's pro-Israel, goes after pro-terror mobs. He reports on them. He reports on basically abuses of illegal migrants in England. He is actually a very good man when you actually look at his record. He is one of the best, most improved people probably on the political landscape, from being the EDL leader to basically being an anti-hatred activist, and not like anti-hate in like antihate.ca, where they basically just go after anyone on the right for vaguely even being next to somebody in a photograph. No, but he's actually against real hatred and bigotry. He goes after the Hamas mobs. He goes after Khalistani mobs. He goes after anyone who tries to attack people, but also tries to take an advantage of the open migration that's happening to England. And so for Ford to cave on this is utterly spineless, as Kirk said. He needs to be punished for this. And I hope if any of you are out there in Ontario, please join the New Blue Party of Ontario. Basically, the New Blue Party of Ontario, it's being run by Jim Carhalios. is effectively being run to try and fulfill the promises that the PC party made in 2018 and completely walked away from. It's about cutting taxes, repealing the crazy sex ed curriculum they have, reforming the curriculum in the province, getting rid of the stupid green energy subsidies to actually lower power bills. All of this stuff cracking down on this type of extremism that Goldi Ghamari was standing up to. That's what the New Blue Party exists for. I hope Goldi considers joining the New Blue Party of Ontario, because it definitely is probably the only small party vehicle that could actually probably undermine the PC party at this point and take away a lot of its support. This should be Doug Ford's Kevin Falcon moment. That Doug Ford thought he was way up in the polls. He can do whatever he wants. He can unilaterally get rid of any MPP he doesn't like, and it's never going to come back to bite him. And I urge you, don't say, well, I don't want the Liberals, the NDP to win. Doug Ford, and I don't like when people exaggerate and they say, well, this person is exactly like the Liberals because they agree on one point. That's not what I'm saying. Doug Ford truly is, like Kevin Falcon, effectively interchangeable with a left-wing party leader. The only reason that Doug Ford won such a big re-election in 2022 was because the Liberals and the NDP were completely pathetic with their two leaders. Doug Ford, if he actually comes up against a tough Liberal party and a tough NDP party, he will lose. So it's actually time for the PC party to get smacked upside the head and for people to migrate over to the New Blue Party to either force the PCs to actually reform or to then replace the PC government with the New Blue Party if they're unwilling to actually shape up and fly right. So if you're in Ontario, check out the New Blue Party. I will be putting their URL in the description of the video below. You can look at them. They actually have EDAs in every single riding. They just got over a policy convention. It's a small party that's actually run efficiently, unlike the PPC, who has EDAs constantly being deregistered because no one's even filing their financial paperwork. This party actually has elected some city councilors in different ridings with their organizing power, and hopefully in the future they'll be able to elect MPPs, although obviously the bigger the offices, the harder that is to pull off, but I have a lot of hope for them. Well, that should be enough for me today on the Wyatt Claypool Show here. Sorry if this episode seemed a bit muddled and ranty, but I was feeling a bit muddled and ranty today. I guess watching Joe Biden debate Donald Trump has infected me, and so I'm mumbling a lot now. But if you want to donate to my legal fund, the Give, Send, Go link is in the description below. Sign up at my website if you want to be on the organizing list. That's wyattclaypool.com. And then again, the New Blue Party link is in the description below. If you want to click on that, read about the party, and consider joining, I think that if they see a membership spike, at the very least, that will cause Doug Ford to reconsider some of his actions, which have been mostly bad. He's basically acted as a bag man for Justin Trudeau. Just look at his quotes about Justin Trudeau. He says that the Prime Minister is doing a fantastic job before the 2021 election, calls Chrystia Freeland his therapist, and he has been bear-hugging that government. There's not even a Liberal premier in the country who is tied closer to Justin Trudeau than Doug Ford. David Eby and him, I guess, would be in a knife fight to see who likes Justin Trudeau better than the other. So hopefully, guys, if you're in Ontario, you'll find your way over to the New Blue Party website. Again, they do not pay me. I simply support them because it is a party that is doing the right thing. Anyways, until next time, I'll see you guys again.